And I think that for some people now, they're getting a view of something that they had never really considered before, that maybe some of their heroes weren't really who they said they were.
Right, and we saw it with Diddy get hit, and there was rumors and stuff going around about him for a very long time. But we
Oh,
looked
yeah.
at Jay-Z, the amount of the billions of dollars worth of deals he's involved in, owning all these different stakes in all of these different companies and stuff, the NFL deal. And then we saw the NFL back him up. And it seems to me now they've tried to destroy this woman, this Jane Doe, who made this allegation against him. It's like the
Right.
club has let Diddy, fall, but they're rallying around Jay-Z. Do you think that is something that can sustain? Because we had a lady on last night called Jaguar Wright, and
Mhm.
she said they're putting a finger in a dam with Jay-Z,
Yeah,
and that
it
dam's
did.
going to burst. What do you
Yeah,
think?
yeah, they're protecting him until they're not. He's completely disposable as well. They'll throw him to the wolves as soon as it suits their purposes and as soon as it distracts away from them. We've talked about this before, about who really pulls the strings in the music industry. It's not these guys. I mean, these guys are the front people that get you interested in it, and they're artists as well as moguls and entrepreneurs, and all of these deals seem to happen. These seem, I mean, so easy to just start your own vodka company, right? I mean, so easy to just get acquired for $1 billion. All these deals are sort of magically happen as long as you're playing ball. But as soon as things start to go the other way, you find out that the level of support isn't what you thought it was. And in fact, with these guys are going to wind up, the end of their career is one thing. This is potentially the end of their freedom too. And what they've done is they done got themselves caught in their own mousetrap.
Yeah, you've touched on a salient point there, because Ciroc vodka, um, that was part of the $1 billion that Diageo paid Diddy. And what did Diddy do? Turn around and sued them for racism and demanded more rights and more money? They're almost 10% owned by BlackRock. Diageo's worth 55 billion US British pounds.
It just shows you it's a little club, and they're all working in the same with the same group of people. They've got the same investment bankers, they've got the same management. So this is a dirty little business. It works well as long as you keep everything under wraps, and sometimes people can make it a long way in this. I think that Diddy became his own worst enemy because his behavior was reprehensible, and you can only hide that for so long. And I mean, I think of the things that I saw when I was bartending in the 90s, when there were no video, no cell phone cameras and whatnot. This is the new era. Everything is documented. I mean, the idea that you could be so brazen about that shows that he was completely out of touch. He was an arrogant narcissist who thought he was above the law, and he forgot that the entrapment game that he's running on people has been run on him. He's as caught as everybody else. So he's going to find out the hard way. I think.
So you mentioned something important as well earlier about these guys are all just front people. Most of them got fake backstories, but there are some real players behind them. I'm going to head off a bunch of questions that are going to come in about this, because we're going to beat them to it. We had Professor Hamamoto on the other night. I don't know if you're familiar with his work, but he spent his entire life researching intelligence and rap and academia. Anyway, he said that there's a hostile takeover. And that's why Diddy and Jay-Z, they're pawns on the chessboard. And the viewers were asking, who's behind it? And he said, these are families you will never even heard of that control the banks. So when you dropped in earlier that you said there's an invisible hand here, what did you mean by that? How high up does this go?
Well, I mean, directly above these guys, I would put Clive Davis. He's a well-known operator. He's not in the shadows. He's not a family you wouldn't have heard of. He's very well known. He's been involved in a lot of mysterious things over the years. A lot A lot of people close to him wind up dead, and he has a lot of questions that need to be answered about his involvement in a variety of different events connected to musicians, and his role in being the puppet master is well known in Hollywood. And he's like a, you know, he, he's just known as one of these guys that sort of, you know, he's not a record label, he's a distributor, and the distributors have an enormous amount of power because of that. And so if you run the distribution networks of anything, really, I mean, just insert any supply chain there, but if you run the distribution networks, you've got a ton of power. And of course, he had a ton of power. And sometimes you want to hold on to that, and sometimes the best way to do it is to have the goods on these people. And so there's no doubt that he was controlling uh, a variety of people, not just limited to Diddy. But I mean, we know about his relationship with Whitney Houston, and everything surrounding her death and his proximity to it, and the like. So this is a guy that you would, if you were rounding up suspects, this is one of the first people you'd drag down to the police station. But you're not going to, because he's Clive Davis and he is extremely well connected. You don't get to be 90 years old in Hollywood and survive being this brutal of a guy by not knowing, you know, by not having a system in place to keep you out of trouble. So.
Indeed. All right. Anyone else that comes to mind, or, you know, above him, even above Clive?
Well, the money, of course. You know, I mean, it's whoever controls the money here, and you see a lot of this now. There's been a ton of consolidation, especially industries like talent representation, IMG, Endeavor, consolidating, buying UFC. I mean, where are they getting their money from? Who's running that? Well, Rahm Emanuel's brother's running that, a hardcore Israeli. So, you know, there's money flowing in from that direction too. And with that money comes terms and conditions, of course, in any sort of business investment. So these rappers aren't just people; they're assets. They're something that they're a revenue stream for a lot of these people, and it behooves them to invest in them early and groom them and get them and open the doors for them and put them in a position to be successful, because they make a lot of money from these guys. So, but it's a dirty game, and at some point when you have to cut bait, you let them take the heat for it, and they disappear, you know, and they're on to their next victim.
All right, we've got almost 2,000 watching live. I am here with Charlie Robinson, author of The Octopus of Global Control. All of Charlie's links are in the description box. I'm going to put his Twitter in the live chat. And Kim's asked if you could tell us a bit more about you, Charlie, because Charlie's been with the channel for years, exposing the NWO, the Bush Cheney crime families, goes way back.
Yeah. Well, my 500th episode of Macroaggressions went out yesterday. That was a very important episode for me. It was about the time I spent, the 98 days I spent in Las Vegas with my mom as she was diagnosed and then ultimately passed away from cancer while I was there. So I discussed that. If you want to know who I am, go check out that episode. That's about as raw as you're going to get me. I'm typically a little bit more snarky, sarcastic, annoyed, infuriated with the state of the world. And that comes out in the books, The Octopus of Global Control, which came out in 2017, The Controlled Demolition of the American Empire, which I wrote with Jeff Berwick in 2020, and Hypocrisy, Surviving in a World of Cultural Double Standards, which came out in 2021. So if you read the books, or you're into audiobooks, check out the Octopus audiobook. It's 23 hours. It'll fill you in on what's going on out there. It's been called a conspiracy dictionary, which I will take. I think that's okay with me.
It's a masterpiece, and the stuff about the Clintons and the Cheney family. Oh my God, it's mind blowing and horrific as well. All right, so what do you think? And my condolences, Charlie, as well, man.
Thank you, Shaun.
Yeah.
You know, one of the interesting things, Shaun, is that when you manage this process, you take control of their devices, you know, and her cell phone. and I'll get these notifications from time to time. YouTube notifies her a lot of times that Shaun Atwood has gone live because she's following
Oh,
you.
God bless.
So,
God bless.
so you had a fan till the very end. I'll have you know.
Oh, well, the spirit is right here, right now, brother.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So, what do you think about Motivation's comment? They are waiting until the Super Bowl is over. Then they will remove the finger from the leaking hole. There's too much money invested in the Super Bowl.
Interesting. I've never considered that. I know that they do like to have these guys involved in the Super Bowl halftime performances and whatnot, and that is true. They do have a lot of money invested in the Super Bowl. It's one of the biggest sporting events in the world. So I don't know if they would hold out for them, but we'll see. The NFL has questions as well.
When is your damn Yankees Super Bowl?
It's in February, like the second week of February.
So
So
under that theory, then Jay-Z may potentially be protected until February. Okay, let's see what happens
we'll see.
if the dam does not break.
We'll see.
Jules, a question tying into this: do you think the corporate sponsors are involved, or at least are aware? Because Busby's been naming companies in his suits, hasn't he?
Oh, I mean, I think that look, you can't watch the ad campaigns that are run by brands like Balenciaga and not think that they're involved in some very dark and nefarious stuff. I mean, it's part of their brand. My assumption is that the brands on some level are involved in this and no, but that's an assumption. I mean, also you're talking about businesses that really just kind of look at spreadsheets too. If you have a vodka that sells a lot, they're willing to overlook quite a lot of character flaws in order to keep that revenue stream going. So it's no different in the entertainment world as it is in professional sports. You could be a horrible human being on a baseball team, and if you're good enough, they will overlook a lot of your shortcomings. So I think that the corporate sponsors are always involved. I mean, I think they always have a say in some way, shape, or form. Now, how much involvement they had in some of the nefarious side of things, I don't know. I mean, maybe that's how you get the deal done, is that you get the head of one of these alcohol companies on camera doing something unspeakable. Next thing you know, you're signing a very lucrative partnership with that company. I mean, again, that's an assumption on my part. I'm not trying to say that any of them were involved, but again, it would stand to reason. I mean, it makes sense. That's how deals get done too.
So we've got a lot of questions come in on the YouTube community wall, and here's one from Consciousness Reality. How fearful should Jay-Z be about Diddy and vice versa? And do you know who or what they both should fear? I think what that person's getting at is like, might they start pointing fingers at each other? Because we just saw Jay-Z announce through his lawyers that he barely knew Diddy.
Well, so you're uniquely qualified to answer this question in terms of cooperating witnesses and people who you talk first, get the best deal, right? That's what they say. So I don't know. Would they be willing to rat each other out? I mean, what's your level of loyalty? Are you Shaun Atwood loyal? Or are you somebody that says we don't talk? Or are you somebody that says, well, listen, man, I mean, I can't go to prison. Like, everybody knows who I am. This would be a catastrophe. I'd be dead in 5 minutes. I got to get out of here. I'll do whatever you want. I don't know. I don't know these guys. I don't know how much. I don't know what sort of level of survival skills they have, or integrity, or where their line in the sand is. But I mean, I think with anything like this, if they start stacking charges on you, whether you're Jay-Z or James Rodriguez, you're going to freak out when they show you what you're up against, and you're going to start having a change of heart in terms of what information you're willing to disclose. So I would assume that these people are willing to rat each other out, but we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, with prosecutors, usually it's a case of they want a bigger person, or if you can give them a number of people, because it's all about the scorecard. If you can give them a bigger person, that enhances their career.
Mhm.
If you can give them a number of people, that enhances their career. There's quotas. These guys have got quotas, like the cops have got arrest quotas. So that's how it works. So we will see. All right, next question from Lam Whitty. Do you think the NFL uses its players for missions outside of preparing for a Super Bowl ring, e.g., Jamie Foxx's leaked video?
This is interesting. I spent 20 years, a little over 20 years ago. I'm co-owner of a company that does media training for professional athletes. So we get guys ready for the draft and interviews and public speaking and so forth. So we've spent a lot of time around the NFL and the NFL players as well. We know that there are questions about the halftime shows. There's always a bit of an occult component to it. I mean, it sort of passes over the normie viewer, and your weirdo friend is going to be like, "Did you see all the symbology and that thing?" So we know that on some level there's compliance with this overriding agenda. And the NFL is in business with the American government, the American military as well. They're a partner with them on their Salute to Service ad campaign, which runs in the military pays the NFL tens of millions of dollars a year to do the the Star Spangled Banner and the military flyovers and all that stuff. All that stuff is being paid for. So there's a huge propaganda component tied to the NFL. There always has been, and I love it. Don't get me wrong. I'm a huge football fan, but I'm watching two versions of it too. I'm watching the normie version, and I'm also seeing during the Super Bowl and things associated with it, this sort of esoteric component that most people sleep on or dismiss as being like, oh, you conspiracy theorists with your ideas. It's like, well, hang on a second here. Go watch the